Peace, 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 peace. Welcome everyone to another Saturn Day Unread with Nick and Roo. This is the review. We are here enjoying this beautiful day of sunshine, even though it is mad cold, mad windy. I don't know what's going on. You tell me. But anyway, we are here today with something to do on these windy days. What? Books? That's an everyday thing. But you know us. We give it some extra time on Saturday. So we are here today. This happens to be a surprise me week. So I have no idea what Nick is bringing. He has no idea what I'm bringing. But I can promise you that we're going to bring you something exciting and something worthwhile to go and look up for yourself. Again, MaWu Lisa Temple here at beautiful upstate New York brings you these episodes of Unread. Nick is down there in the city of Newark, and we are bringing you this thing from all states because guess what? That's what we plan on doing, expand it out. But until we get to your state, thank you for joining us virtually. Welcome back to all those who have joined us before, and welcome to the new folks who are just joining us. Here on Unread, we share with you books that are unread in our libraries or rereads or books that we just feel are noteworthy of mentioning. Also, we have authors with new books or books that have been in our community for a while, and we bring them on to talk about their process, their book, and what their book was meant to do in the community and for us all. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Nick, it is always good to see you, my brother. How are you? How has your week been?
Oh, it's always great to see you as well, Roo. Hold on one more second. I was doing some technical things in the background, so let me make sure I'm back on the screen. Okay, there we go.
Yes.
All right. Okay, yep, there we go. I had to make sure my mic was unmuted too. So yes, it's always great to see you. It's always great to have these conversations about our favorite thing to talk about, which is books. And this is our and this is our first show for the month of March. We are in the new month now. February flew past us, January flew past us, and now we're into March. And before you know it, the first quarter of 2025 will be over soon, already. So I'm excited that's a new month. I'm excited that spring will be coming officially in a few weeks, and that we're getting more hours of sunshine each day. The temperature, temperature is going to do what it do. Sometimes it teases us a little bit and tell us that spring is coming, and then it'll drop back down to winter temperatures. But at least it's teasing us a little bit, and it's not just giving us, just straight cold, like not giving us any hope, So, yep, I'm happy to see you again. It felt like it's been a while since we had that powerful conversation with Portia Cooper discussing from fiat to digital. So that was a great conversation. That was our last episode 22 on February 22nd. And we got another 22nd of the month show coming up after that. So the numbers is doing what they do, and I love it. 22 is my number. Yep. Yep. So today is 8. On the side note, you said, happy Saturn's Day to everyone, and today happens to be the 8th, and the 8th is ruled by Saturn. So we got double Saturn energy between the 8th and being Saturday. But that's just a side note. But we're here to talk about books. So yes. I'm ready to jump into it. Whether you want to go first or I go first.
Oh no, I want you to go first. You ready to jump in? I can't wait because you've been showing out lately. So go ahead with it. I am here for it. And for everybody again who's joining us for the first time, welcome. Those who are coming back, welcome back. And I just want to add on that episode with the sister Portia was amazing. If you did not take advantage of that cryptocurrency course that she has, the introduction, do that for yourself. I did it that day. I signed up for mine that day. And
Same
so if
here.
you have not, do that for yourself because it's a valuable asset. Shout out to the Queen. We're looking forward to talking to you again.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I was the same way. I jumped on it right away. So hopefully there's still some slots left because she said only the first 25, I think it was, can
Yes.
take advantage of that special 79% discount on that course. So
Yes.
go back to that previous episode and click the link in the description so you could take advantage. So
That's right.
yeah,
Don't forget to use that code. Don't forget to use
yep.
that code.
Yep. Promo code unread. That's right.
Yes. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So for this edition, this episode, I'm bringing a book that is a read and it's in line to be reread, and it's a notable book. And we've talked about children's books in the past. We had Sister Seshat Ali that was on our show back in what was it, December, I think, December, January, was sometime earlier in the winter time to discuss the adventures of Patty B. Everything's fine. We're on divine time. So I'm coming back with another book for the youth. This is, you can consider it a children's book, but not the same format or age group of a children's book. This is less of a picture book and more of a chapter book. So maybe for young people that might be in the higher elementary grades or middle school, junior high school, maybe somewhere around there. So this is a book that I read back in 2018, and I got the book because normally I don't usually go for children's books or books for younger people. I usually read adult books, although I do enjoy, reading books for the children, especially those that get into, fantasy and things of that nature. But the reason why I read this book or got this book in the first place was because the author was doing a book signing and discussion in the city of Newark. I believe it was at a church. I didn't have time to grab the flyer, either the digital flyer. I don't know if I still have the physical flyer somewhere, but I would have grabbed the flyer so I could show the people where this event occurred. But it was at a church somewhere. I remember the location of it. It was it's like in that University Heights area, close to the hospital and close to Central Avenue. It was somewhere in that area. But I went to this event because I'm like, wow, this is a impactful and a person that has ties to someone who's very well known, especially if you're, I mean, in American history, American and world history, but especially if you're, a melanated person, Black person, African American. This is one of our iconic figures. So this author is a daughter of that iconic figure, and this iconic figure, he's a man. His wife is also a very, very influential person that, sometimes can be in the shadows of the great leader and the person that's at the forefront. So I'm speaking of none other than Malcolm X and his wife is Betty Shabazz. So my offering for this week, and I'll tell you all about it. My offering is Betty Before X by Ilyasah Shabazz. Let me put it on the solo screen so you all can see it. Yeah, Betty Before X by Ilyasah Shabazz, and with Renee Watson. So Renee Watson offered the assistance on penning this book. Now, this book is called Betty Before X because it details the life of Betty Shabazz before she met Malcolm X and became Malcolm X's wife. But it's a children's book, so it's written in that style. So I'll go ahead and read the description here, so you all can get an overview of what the book is about. So you see an animation here. That's a illustration of a young Betty Shabazz. And then on the inside, with the description, there's a quote on the top that says, "Freedom is a strong seed" by Langston Hughes. So this book description says, in Detroit in 1945, 11-year-old Betty's house doesn't quite feel like home. She believes her mother loves her, but she can't shake the feeling that her mother doesn't want her. Church helps those worries fade, if only for a little while. Speeches from guest activists like Paul Robeson and Thurgood Marshall stir African Americans in Betty's congregation to stand up for their rights despite widespread racial prejudice. Soon Betty and her friend Susetta begin volunteering for the Housewives League, an organization that supports Black-owned businesses, and Betty's confidence blooms as she sees the real change her hard work can create. But when a terrible crime occurs in their community, Betty realizes the right way forward isn't always clear. Before Betty Shabazz met Malcolm X and became a mother, educator, and world-renowned activist, she was simply a girl. In this book, inspired by real life and fictionalized through collaboration with lauded novelist Renee Watson, Ilyasah Shabazz illuminates 4 important years in her mother's childhood. Here is an inspiring portrait of a girl overcoming challenges of self-acceptance and belonging that will resonate with young readers today as they put down their own roots in the fight for equality. Okay. So when we look at the chapters, and before I get to the chapters, like I said, I attended the event, the book discussion, the book signing. So there is the autograph there from Ilyasah Shabazz in 2018 in the title page. And I guess since I just showed that, that'll be a good time for me to show our picture too. So let me go ahead and show the picture that we took together at the event. Okay, there it is. So there it is. Okay, see it. So there's the picture. Myself and
Okay, I can't see it on my side here.
Okay. Let me see. How about now if I put it on full screen?
Nothing yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the audience can see it. So
okay.
I can send you this picture, or you can look back at it in the replay. Well, let me put it back up, for the audience. Yep. So that's the picture that we took when I got the book signed. Ilyasah Shabazz, the daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz. So let's go take a look at what's inside here. So I gave you the overview, but let's take a look at how the chapters are broken up. I don't think there's chapter titles. All right, so the chapters are, well, the sections of the book are broken up by year and location. So the first section of the book is takes place in Pinehurst, Georgia, 1934 to 1940. So it starts. That's where the story starts for Betty. Then it goes to Detroit, Michigan, 1945. And I'll skip around a little bit. I won't go to all of them. And then there's numbered chapters in between these sections as well. So it looks like there's 17, 18. We got Detroit, Michigan, 1947. 1948. And this last chapter, so yeah, so there's 34 chapters, but some of the chapters are pretty short. Some of them are as short as a single page, but there's 34 chapters. The page count is 245 pages. And at the end of the book, there's a beautiful picture of Betty Shabazz there.
Wow.
At the end of the book, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so there's an author's note at the end where Sister Ilyasah provides some additional commentary on her mother's life, as well as some of the settings. Detroit in the 1940s, Bethel AME Church, where she belonged, and the community and the work that church was doing during that time. She has a meet the characters section where she discusses some of the important people in her mother's life that she grew up with, her friends and family. And in the description, I mentioned the Housewives League. So there's a description about the short history of the Housewives League, what that was and its purpose. And then there's a timeline at the end, also a timeline of Betty's life, up until from her birth up until her transition in 1997. Then you have the acknowledgments in the end. So I haven't read this book since 2018, so I won't be able to tell you specific details. It's pretty much as if I'm reading this for the first time, just picking it up now. I don't really have. Doesn't look like I have any annotations in there, although I thought I saw something underlined. I'll see if I come to it before I close out. So I don't see it right now. I just saw it a few minutes ago. I should have dog-eared that page because it was, like I said, there's very few annotations in here. And if I underline something in here, then it was probably an impactful and significant passage. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. So this might be the only annotation. This is the only one that I found. So I'll go ahead and read this one. And maybe it might click in my mind why this passage stood out to me. But it looks like it's a conversation between Betty and her friends, because I see Suzetta has some dialogue in here, and but this is what it says. The part that I marked here, probably the only part that I marked in this book. It says, well, I'll read up above so I could give some additional context. So they're talking about the Housewives League. Betty and Suzetta. Suzetta says to Betty, "We could still be friends even though your mom doesn't agree with Mrs. Peck and Mrs. Malloy." So I think these are the ladies that work in the house, work with the Housewives League. Her voice sounds hopeful, but her face is sad. And then here's the part that I marked. It's not about my mother disagreeing with them. I disagree with them, with all of you, she says. I don't want to be friends with girls who believe that buying expensive products from Negro stores is going to change anything. A tube of Dudley's hair cream isn't going to bring any of the people back to life who are strung up on trees. So this is the conversation, whether this is an actual conversation or fictionalized conversation, because there's a mixture of fictionalized and actual events from Betty's life in the story. But that was the one annotation that I made in this book, was that exchange between Betty and her friend Suzetta as young girls. So this is my offering. I normally don't get caught up into the designated months, but I know our audience, observes the various months. Look like we have Black History Month in February. This month is Women's History Month. So I thought that this would be a great offering for Women's History Month. Woman author, a book about a woman too. So Betty Before X by Ilyasah Shabazz. This is my offering for this episode, March 8th, 2025 edition of UnRead Book Review.
I told you you've been showing out lately. Oh man, it's you and the pictures and the signatures. You got me on that part. I'll give you that. I got a bunch of signed books, but man, you be getting the pictures and everything. That's all right. It's all right. It's not a competition.
Right, exactly. It's not.
It's a collection. It's a collection.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's a collection. We like a library in of itself, right? What an amazing offering. What an amazing offering. I have not seen that book before. As a matter of fact, I've never heard of it before. And I homeschooled my children. So I was trying to figure out what year was that book? What year did that come out?
This is a fairly new book. So it must have came out. Yeah, it came out the same year that I got. So 2018 came out.
All right. All my children were long grown up by that time.
Yeah. I forgot to mention
what an amazing book. That seems like it would be, as an educator, is that a book that you would recommend for a homeschooler possibly, or a parent that are giving their children supplemental instruction at home? Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend this book. I'm not sure how homeschool is structured, but if homeschool is completed by subjects, this would be a book for the English or ELA or language arts part of your homeschool curriculum. Since it is a narrative, it's like I said, it's some of it is fictionalized. It's written as a narrative. It's written as a story, like a chapter book. So it's not so much written as a history book, although there are his historical references. It's more written as a novel, for young children. So I would recommend it for English language arts, but of course it could be paired with a social studies curriculum or a history curriculum. So you have that interdisciplinary learning going on where you're able to make connections between, the language arts and the history. So as you're reading this book and you're maybe analyzing it for literary elements such as story structure and characterization and plot and setting, so all of those concepts that accompany studying literature, you compare it with the historical events that were going on during that time, or in ultimately leading up to Betty Shabazz's adult life.
Now, thank you for that. And you know what? I can definitely see what you mean about where it could fit into the curriculum. One of the great things I loved about homeschooling was the freedom to be able to, include diverse kind of books into, the curriculum that wouldn't be offered in school. Can you see this book maybe as a form of motivation for young people to become more active in the community?
I think so. It might be a little challenging looking at the dates in it, and then children might feel far removed from the 1940s. But I think by including the supplemental information and showing the trajectory of Betty's life from childhood, even after her transition, the legacy that she left with her own children and the work that they're doing now, I think it can offer some motivation and provide some additional examples of women and people that are doing work in the community, and also give them exposure to some of the organizations that were around during that time. Some of those lesser organizations, like the one that I mentioned, the Housewives League. So lesser known organizations such as those. I mean, already many of the women's clubs and organizations are lesser known, such as the National Association of Colored Women, and there's a couple of other ones. The National Association for Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated. So there are several women's clubs specifically created by and for Black women. So I think by making our young women aware of these clubs, it can encourage them to get involved with the clubs that are still in existence now and still doing the work in the community.
Or maybe even inspire them to reignite something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think one of the you was talking about how it's a little bit dated in terms of the years and how they may feel far removed. The thing that stands out to me is, out of all the things you highlighted in the book, that line that you highlighted is very relevant today. Because we still see people trying to buy their way into whatever version of life they feel is better than the one they have. So I find that very relevant, and how that one line can tie it together, not only for youth, but also adults and present day. So what a wonderful offering. I am definitely there for that. And I can't wait to see that picture, because I know you got your look on, you know what I mean? Because you like, yeah.
Yeah. And I was coming from work.
Standing with a legacy, a living legacy.
Yeah. I was coming for work that day too. So yeah.
Standing with a living legacy. Well, all right. Well, I tell you, you never cease to amaze me, and I love our surprise weekends, because we talk about books a lot. We've been talking about books for years. Yeah. And it still makes me smile at how many books we have that we never even talked about yet. That's kind of what inspired this space in the first place. Was I told you years ago, I had this vision for this place where we got together and we just talked about books. I know it sounds corny, and I know we're not the only people doing it, but it was just like, I felt like that could be a great contribution, because we both have invested so much into our libraries. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not just money, fiat, not just buying the books, but hours and hours and hours spent reading these books and highlighting and making notes. I have whole notebooks full of notes from books that could be a book itself. You know what I mean? So this is a great thing when I see this, and I love the diversity, and I also love children's books. I'm a big advocate for children's books and young adult, young teen books, and some of the lessons that can be gleaned from them, because you have to remember, these are being written by adults who are sometimes really trying to inspire the youth, but bring it to them in a way that is still fun and light and, not so heavy, because some of these topics, especially the things that were going on in that time, were so heavy. To be able to talk about that to young people can be a little bit challenging. So shout out to the Queen for that offering. And I'm definitely going to have to add that one to my granddaughter's list. I got all those granddaughters. So I'm going to have to send some more books out. My Patty B books got to go out, and now this one has to go out. And I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, now I just feel regular smegular. Bring it.
Please.
I feel regular smegular bringing my book now, but listen, I, like you, don't always have to follow the trends of what the month is or whatever, but I also had women in mind, because tonight, for those of you who follow Mawulisatemple, please join us tonight on Zoom. We are doing a celebration to our sisters. It is women only Sorry, brothers, y'all have y'all chance in a minute. But this is women only. We are getting together and we are celebrating each other and giving each other our flowers, talking about women who have made a difference in our lives, women who have inspired us and helped us shape and mold us into the women leaders that we are today. So I went with a classic.
Okay.
And I call it a classic because I remember when I found this book, well, actually when I found this author, and I found this book, I was just like, I don't know anything about my people. I don't know anything about myself. All this book learning, as my daddy called it, and it's still so much I don't know. And one of the things I think that really drove that home for me was understanding the word history. It's somebody's version. You know, it's not the do all say all. It's a version of a story. You know what I mean? So when I found this author, it started to shape and mold how I went back and looked at some of the things I thought I knew from a period in time to what was actually going on in other places than the places that the formal school system would direct our attention, i.e., all the regular places, Europe, Rome, Greece. They always throw that's the Egypt, even they throw all that out there, but it was so much going on in other places that were dynamic and that helped shape and mold the world that we live in today. So, who am I talking about? Our beloved, esteemed brother Ivan Van Sertima,
Okay. Let me
and
put you in the phone.
I have brought women, Black women in antiquity,
Yes.
Black women in antiquity. First of all, don't you love that beautiful purple, rich Aquarian type energy? You know what I'm saying? Cover. And this cover was done. I just want to point this out. It was done by one of his family members. I don't know. It may have been one of his daughters, Jacqueline L. Patton Van Sertima. So the cover design is by her. So I thought that was really important to point out, is that the cover was done by one of his family members. So this book here, I love to tell how books find their way to me. So this book right here found its way to me, like many of my books, from Weekway Library, y'all. I'm telling you, shout out the Weekway Library and them not just throwing books away and letting people come in there and purchase those little books for a few cents on the dollar. Because believe me, I was racking my life up back then. So this book here, one of those ones I found just out, and it called me and I called back. But the original copyright on this book is 1984 by Journal of African Civilizations Ltd Inc. Right? It's a compilation of work done by Dr. Van Sertima, and he also enlisted the assistance of several of our scholars to be able to put together this great historical and informative work. So again, the printing on this one was the 10th edition. So this was 2002, this edition here. So I'm sure that some of the changes that had been made from the original book probably updated it with more pictures and things of that nature that helped us to better see those places in history. Don't worry, y'all. I'm gonna get better at showing y'all these pictures.
You
Maybe
good?
I
You
get
good?
no, I'm gonna get fancy like Nick, and I'm gonna put them up on the screen when I figure it out. But anyway, anyway, let's get back to this Black women in antiquity. So, when this would be a reread. No, this would be one of my resource books, because I told you guys that I have books that I've read, this is a book that I've read, but it's also a book that I go back to for reference for things, because it's a great resource book. Again, like I said, it brings together many of our scholars in this space, in the space of Black women in antiquity, and allows you to be able to dig deeper into their works. And let me just point out, one of the things I love about this book is at the end of every chapter is our notes in the bibliography. And I thought that was so important, because I could see how in structuring this book, like we do talk to authors, so you get to know a few things about putting together a book and things like that. A book of this magnitude and of this weight, Even though it doesn't look that big, if you had all of those references in one place, you'd never be able to appreciate them in the same way. You wouldn't, because it would be too much for the eyes to see. But if you taking it in small pieces like this and being able to really enjoy the works for their individual contribution as well as their collective message, is fantastic. It's only 234 pages, and that's with the notes and everything here in the back. Has some biographical notes on the contributors. So like I said, some of the contributors he had was John Henry Clark, Charles Finch, Rosalind Jeffries, Camille Yarborough, Virginia Simon, Deidre Wembry, and many, many others. Patton Van Sertima, Jacqueline, and Danita Reed, Sonia Sanchez. So all names that we know from
Mm-hmm.
history and some of the great things. And so this is just a fantastic work to have in your library. So let's get into it. The book is broken into three parts with a special essay part in the back. So in part one, we have things like the African Eve, the great queens of Ethiopia, Nefertiti, the queen to the sacred mission, Nubian queens of Egypt, Egypt's Isis, the original Black Madonna, African goddesses, the mothers of civilization. And that's by Runoko Rashidi. Everybody know who that is, right? Black women, part two is Black women in ancient art, which is I just want to point out that was one of the reasons I initially got this, was because I was working on an art project and needed some more references and pictures and history of some of the women in antiquity, and I was able to find it here. So Camille Yarborough offers on page 89 female style and beauty in Africa, a photo essay. So it's a complete photo essay, so bunches of pictures there. And then they have images of women in African cave art, and that's by Rosalind Jeffries. And finally, part three, conquerors and courtesans, African warrior queens and African women in early Europe. In the special essays, we have Hypatia and women's rights in ancient Egypt, Black Madonnas of Europe, the fusion of African Isis, and Hatshepsut. So this book, let me just say, it comes out the gate offering information that we just weren't introduced to in the systems that we learn now, right? A lot of people talk about the Adam and Eve story and how true or false it is or whatever like that. And one of the things he starts out with in this book is talking about how they decided that that wasn't where they were going to start. And so if I may, I'll share a little bit here with you. It says, in the earlier preparation for this special volume, Black Women in Antiquity, we were tempted to dwell upon the controversy raging over the first woman, our earliest known ancestor, the African mother of all mankind, Lucy. We have been forced to resist that temptation. Archaeology and its fascination, yes. But apart from Lucy's age, 3.5 million years, her height, 3 feet, her weight, 60 pounds, and her place of origin, Ethiopia, next to nothing of real significance in the study of women is known about her. I thought that was interesting that he gave all the numbers, like her height, her weight, it was just, those numbers were numbering, right?
That's
And
right.
it goes down to say, the drama surrounding the find of the African Eve is intriguing. especially in the way that it's handled by Donald Johanson and Matilda Edie in their classic work on this subject. But for those of us who are primarily interested in the adult stages of civilization, rather than those first infant steps of the humanoid, of the hominid, it is particularly illuminating. We found it far more useful to focus our attention on the materials gathered selected under our editorship for this book. Most of our writers have concentrated on queens and goddesses of Ethiopia and Egypt. Okay, so let me just step back for a second. As many of us who have been educated in the United States, we hear very little about goddesses, queens, any of that from Africa, from the continent. You'll hear about the Queen of Sheba, and I think that's mostly because they mention it in the book in relation to Solomon, and they mention that in here too. And I'm really going to read something interesting to you about that particular part. But they mention so many women that I had never heard of. Had never heard of, even in the so-called circle, that woke circle, the conscious circle. Hadn't even heard of some of these women. Hadn't even heard of some of them. And we are talking, when you read some of these stories, it make you just wonder, like, why? And then, but then you get it why they don't, because look at the patriarchal world we live in here. But I want to read a little bit more, but I just wanted to point that out, is that if you read this book, if you take the opportunity to put this into your library, you'll have a collection and stories of inspiration of women that will just blow your mind. It would blow your mind. It would definitely blow your mind. But like my mama said, women are super women, so you'll get over it. It says Larry Williams and Charles Finch trace these women, so prominent in Greek myth, back to their Ethiopian origins. I find that so interesting because in school, they very rarely talked about Ethiopia. Very rarely. And now, if you think about it, I can see why you would want to exclude a place that was full of people that was doing the thing. Doing the thing that nobody else was doing anywhere else. Running things, conquering things, making things, building things, tearing things down, just doing all the work, right? And being the great mothers. It says they also introduce us to the most powerful of all Black queens. From the Meroitic, the Kintake, which means the queen mother. It says here, Ethiopian queens were independent rulers. It says this raises the question as to what extent the early African matriarchal patterns underwent changes as the Africans moved down northwards toward Egypt. It says Williams and Finch also contend, however, that such independent female rulers are found throughout Africa in time and space, and that the relative frequency of queenship compared to other parts of the world reflected the persistent matriarchal patterns in Africa through the course of history. They are letting us know that the time period they are covering is from 1000 BC to 1000 AD. And it really you find out about so many women in this book that it is just insane. It's insane. I'll let you know. But I wanted to read this piece to you about the Queen of Sheba really quickly before I fast forward and get into another chapter here. So it says Makeda, which is also the Queen of Sheba. Now think about it. When they telling you her name, Queen of Sheba, how often have you heard Makeda be referenced with that? I never heard that part. Maybe I missed that day in Sunday school. I don't know, but I don't remember her being referred to as Makeda, and definitely didn't know her to be Ethiopian. That was something I found interesting too, because even though it's in there, whenever you saw a movie or a film connected to the Queen of Sheba, she never looked like she was Ethiopian. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. We can say the same thing about Queen Nefertiti. I think I had to be about 13 when I realized that Elizabeth Taylor wasn't Nefertiti. You know what I mean? Now, maybe I was a little
Right.
bit dumb, but nonetheless, it was just interesting how they depicted these women, knowing that these women were of Ethiopian origin. So Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, she is also known in the Bible as the Great Black Beauty, who melted King Solomon's heart into a song, right? And it says she organized an extensive trade network and ruled the empire larger and more substantial than Solomon's. Her business with him involving commercial and diplomatic settlements, not just romantic concerns. And it says all that he lavished upon her in hospitality was a tribute not simply to her beauty, as they make it sound, but to her position of eminence and influence in the ancient world, basically paying tribute to her. It wasn't just, oh, I'm in love with this girl, let me just give her some necklaces. No, this was like, oh, my queen, thank you for ruling, for showing us the way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, her empire was bigger than his. You know what I mean? Just to give a understanding, especially now when people are asking, well, what do you bring to the table? And all these questions that get asked now, it's like, if you only understood the power of the woman, if you only understood, and that the power of the man is important, but that companionship, that partnership, that inspiration that is given from one to the other is what truly makes us successful in all things. And later on they talk about how they were not only the masters, how these great goddesses, queens, queen mothers were not only the masters of state in other in rulership, but also the masters of spiritual capitals. So not only did they handle their business, they handled their spiritual business too, and they made sure to dole these things out in equal parts, right? So fast forward here. I want to talk about Phalasha, Queen Judith, right? And I just wanted to jump onto her for 1 second because of the simple fact she is mentioned as one of the only goddesses to conquer. So while it talks about Zinga and Candace, they talk about them as defenders of their respective countries against invaders, but they said Judith appears to have actually started the war against the Abyssinian Solominoid dynasty and carried it into successful conclusion, and then reigned for 40 years unchallenged. Reigned for 40 years unchallenged. And it said the Solominoids remained out of power for some 300 years, because after Judith came the dynasty of the Zagways in circa 1000 AD. So basically, she put her foot down, and they ain't rule for a minute. She came in and she saw, she conquered. Now let's not. I just want to put this out there. Not that I think our listeners, our family that is listening to us, thinks that any of this is sexist. Oh, she trying to talk about the women. Liz, we talking about our women, the mothers of civilization, the ones we give thanks for being here right now. They showing us we had a tremendous power. When was the last time you heard of some women conquering something today? Let's get out there and conquer something, y'all. But anyway, I digress.
Mhm.
And I just add with this, some people describe her as a pagan. And other people say that she was a part of the Falasha Jews. I find it interesting, when you don't fit inside of a certain frame, they quick to throw that word on you, pagan, right?
Mhm.
They
Yep.
quick to throw that on you. But this is an example of how they offer pictures that we had never seen before. I'd
Wow.
never seen that before.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't seen that before either.
So this is the Negro Goddess. That's what it's called. Figure 12, Negro Goddess, an unidentified Meroitic queen, late 1st century BC, Lion Temple at Naga. So for all my people that like to travel, if you go and you get a chance to take a picture of that, hey, send it back to your sister. I'm here for it. So, like I said, they talk so much in here about women we had never heard of. Like I said, there's a beautiful photo essay in here by Camille Yarborough, offered up towards the middle of the book. All kinds of pictures of us doing all kinds of things. If you
Mm.
if you notice here, I love this picture here. This one here, that picture there, that was one that really got my attention because it is from the 20th dynasty, and it was showing a mother nursing her child, and the hair is worn in the style to soon to be mothers, and during a period of purification. So even back then they showed us that we even had a way that we wore our hair when we were getting ready to give birth. Like all everything we do is to connect us to nature and promote our natural power, right? Because we know the hair is powerful. And so it's an antenna, for sure, for sure. And then they have the Nubian women in Egypt down at the bottom here
Okay.
with the
Yeah.
bebis, with the
Mm-hmm.
bebis,
Yeah.
right? And I want to jump up here, and then I'm gonna yield the floor. Um, in the part here about Hypatia and women's rights in ancient Egypt, a lot of times we think about again, like I said, right now we have this whole thing. What do you bring to the table? Yeah, 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 all this good stuff like that. You know, in this section, I think it would be a great place to start some conversation. But it talks about the royal women, political marriages, um, things like that. And it talks about the contrast between Egypt and Greco-Rome and how their women came into power or not, and how their women ruled from behind the throne and ours in front of the throne. Equal pay for equal work. It says 4,000 years ago, women in the Nile Valley enjoy a more legal rights and privileges than women have in many nations of the world today. Equal pay for equal work is a cry heard now, but it seems to have been the norm thousands of years ago in Egypt. That's Barbara Lesko citing from her. So again, and then it talks about property rights and rights of Egyptian women. For those of us observing Ramadan right now, um, Ramadan Mubarak to all my brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum. We talk about in Surah Anisa some of the rights of the women and things like that. So again, it would be a great compare contrast. Talk about some things, see if you know how these things influence each other, and again try to understand some more of how we ran our lives back then. It even talks about marriage contracts and how it protected women's property rights in the marriage terms, assuring that her share in case of separation by death or divorce. And it talks about the high status that was given, and so it's a beautiful thing. I mean, this is a great work, and I mean, I would recommend it for anyone to put on to their shelves. Oh, I thought this was an interesting picture here. This
Yeah,
one.
let's see it. Okay.
This is Ati, A-T-I, Ati, A-T-I, Ati, the queen of Winnet, or Punt, is Pwenet, or Punt, Punt, right? But I thought her stature was interesting. Like, look, she
Very.
don't look all petite and frail. She looked solid. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
she
That's
looked
a
like
fact.
if she was coming your way, you wasn't talking that, all crazy, because she looked like she was coming with the business.
Oh yeah.
And she built for sound, respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? She respectfully built for sound. I know that sounds so old. I know my father somewhere like, yep, I taught her that. Built for sound. But like I said, I've been Sertima, y'all. Black Women in Antiquity, one of my favorite books to keep on my shelf. Again, if you're not familiar with Dr. Van Sertima's work, please get yourself some time to pick up on some of his books. Of course, They Came Before Columbus, one of his most famous books.
Yep. I got that one.
I'm sorry.
I said, yep, I got that one.
Yes, They Came Before Columbus, The Golden Age of the Moors, Black Women in Antiquity, Black Women in Science, Blacks in Science, African Presence in Early Europe, African Presence in Early Asia, which I have that one. That is an amazing book, by the way. And Van Sertima Before the Congress was a transcript of him going before and presenting his work. And I love how old school books you can find where they had audio tapes that you could get for $10.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? You got the audio. I got a lot of audio tapes, man. I got a lot of cassette tapes. And let me just say, for those who don't know, Dr. Van Sertima was right there in the city of Newark, teaching at Rutgers University, all up and down the Rutgers circuit. And definitely I didn't have the opportunity to meet Dr. Van Sertima myself, but you know what? I feel good because I worked with a sister who Dr. Van Sertima was her professor in the Caribbean where she went to school. So I got to touch him that way, through one of his students, and some of the stories that she would share with us were very inspiring. So again,
Okay.
Black Women in Antiquity, Ivan Van Sertima, y'all. Get you
Oh,
some. Get you some. Get you
yeah,
some.
yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
shop
yeah,
it,
yeah.
Nick. Let's shop it. Let's shop it.
Yes, 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 yes. A beautiful offering, a title that I have heard of, and it's probably on my list. It's probably on my reading list. So yeah, it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to getting, as well as Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's other works. I only have They Came Before Columbus. That's the only work of his that I own and have read. So I need to, collect the rest of his catalog, because he
Yes.
did, he did some amazing work and research, you know, um, during his time, and of course, he's always frequently mentioned as one of our, top scholars
Yes.
and authors. Indeed, indeed. So with
Indeed.
that being said, and I guess to make the connection to my book, or a possible connection to my book, and the question that you posed to me for my offering for Betty Before X, it's a similar question for you in regards to the readership, and who, who or what group of people would, women in the antiquity be best for, and uh, how can it be, I guess, how the information in that book can be repurposed or presented in a way that the youth can access the information. And I'm asking that just in case it's written on a college level, since he was a professor. Talk to us about the language and how it's written, and how can we make the information accessible to the youth, so they can be learned and be inspired by these great women throughout history.
Thank you for that, and that's a great question. And you would think with all these heavy hitting scholars that it would be very scholarly, but I think they went out of their way to make it digestible for just about anyone. Now, I wouldn't say that the young age group that you have for your particular offering would be able to really grasp the weight of this without the assistance of an adult being able to put together a great curriculum. However, I see a great curriculum being able to be written from this work. I always tell people one of the great things that I've been able to do in my life is had the honor and the pleasure to write curriculums for people, and I see how putting a curriculum together for any portion of this book would be amazing, and how you could take the total work of it as well and put it into, let's say, a couple of semester studies for even AP high school students. Even I can see it for regular high school students, but if you want to go like really in depth, I could definitely see it for those interested in things like archaeology and things like that. I could definitely see that. I mean, this work for a young person, I think would be a bit much. I mean, some of these, I would be honest, and I've always been honest about this. Some of the names, man, just the names, just trying to figure out how to say some of these names and not really having a reference. Now everybody got Google. You can put everything in Google and they'll tell you how to say it. But I can definitely see reading this as a group, even the group discussions. I can see that. I can see study circles, in learning more about the individual goddesses and warriors and things, and looking deeper into their works. And again, like I said, each section at the end of it, the author who did that particular session, that particular section, excuse me, gives you a conclusion, and they give you notes, and they give you references. And I think that's so great, because again, you can see how that would go in and help you to be able to develop a study plan, a lesson plan, or what have you.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, because they definitely need to get the information, and I think that's what a good teacher does. They're able to take complex information and make it simple enough for anyone to understand, depending on who their audience and who their students are. They're able to take complex concepts, complex events and names, and make them really accessible to the students. So I could see where that intermediary would come in between that work and the students. But yeah, that's a beautiful work, and it's something that people need to see. People need to become aware of some of these lesser known women, and not just individual women by names, but just the collective, and the practices, and the culture and the history. It's something that everyone, regardless of age, youth, elder, it's something they all need to know. Just going back to how we always critique Black History Month, and how they always put that focus on those same individuals and those same movements and those same periods of history. you know, and that's, and I recently finished reading Kindred by Octavia E. Butler for one of my classes, one of my AP literature classes, and one of my AP students brilliantly mentioned or pointed out that, you know, this is a neo-slave narrative, and it's another, even though it's a neo-slave narrative, meaning it's a combination of science fiction and a slave narrative, is still talking about slavery. Even though this book came out in 1979, it's like, why, you know, he's like, why are we reading something about slavery again? Which which was an excellent point. And I think books like this one that you offered today, Women in Antiquity, offers those narratives in history beyond the slave narrative or the civil rights movement in America and things of that nature. So, excellent offering there.
Thank you. And I totally agree. I wanted to add this one point that Dr. Van Sertima made here in his section. He says women have lived under the shadow of man's ego, even as in the past few centuries, the black has lived under the shadow of the white. It says the myth of female inferiority seems to have been far more developed in Europe and Asia than in Africa. This was due to the differences in metaphysics and social structure, even perhaps in the very nature of the Indo-European male temperament itself. Whatever it was, the black queens, madonnas, and goddesses dominating the imagination of antiquity have few European or Asiatic counterparts. Yet it would be idyllic to assume that women do not have to strive to achieve and maintain her equality in Africa, regardless of the countervailing myths like that of Isis and Osiris, which ranked her as divine equal. She complemented but also competed with man, even at times embracing both male and female attributes, as with the case of Zinga and Hatshepsut, in order to establish her domination. It says, this book, we hope, is one of the opening chapters in that new history. So it speaks just to what you said, how the narrative has always been. And I think we covered that before with one of our other offerings, how it seems like they love to keep us in this, talking about the slave era, like we get it, we get it, but there was other stuff going on. And that's one of the things that I think I mentioned at the beginning, was that they keep you so locked in and they teach you so directly what they want you to know. You forget this is just history. It's not all the story. It's not all the story. It's just his story. And so whoever directs, that narrative gets to dictate, what it is we see from a period of time. I just want to say too, for all my creatives out there, like I said, we don't only talk books in the form of books that are already written. We also talk to a lot of authors and we talk about their process and ideas and things like that. So what I would love to see, and I challenge, challenge our listeners or whoever hears this at any time, what I would challenge somebody to do is to take some of these stories and put them into children's books. I'd love to see how that would look as children's stories. I just would. I would love to see that. Like, some, beautiful pictures, simple, easy language, maybe some maps that would show, the area of, because it talked about them moving northwards towards Egypt. So maybe something about, that passage from there and how it changed their leadership. I mean, I'm giving out $1 million ideas right here. So whoever write these books, don't forget your sister. I'm letting you know. I'm going to come for you. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I'm coming. I want my signed copy. That's what it is.
Yeah. And your picture to go with
I
it.
want my signed copy, my picture in an interview. I want the scoop, y'all. I want the scoop. But I would love to see this put into some children's books. I really would, because I just think about how little, again, we learn in school, if you will, and how it makes you feel as an adult to realize it was so much more that you could have added to your mind and your imagination to even show you, inspire you to a different level of greatness. You know, if all you ever showing me is, okay, you know, the hustle and the struggle, and you know, it's never a time when you see yourself in glory. You know what I mean? And and you know, again, success is measured by each individual for what it is. But I think if you're going to keep pushing the narrative towards something about what our women's success and women's rights and all that stuff look like, I think if you're going to push that narrative, you should tell the whole story and not just a part of it.
That's a fact. Absolutely. Agreed. Tell the whole story.
Tell the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
For real. So that's my offering on this week. So, I mean, Nick, we got on board with each other again. You know, we did this whole women's history thing and we didn't plan on it. You know, we didn't plan on it. We love that. We love keeping ourselves in alignment. We love doing that. So any questions from the audience? I can't tell what the audience got going on. We got any questions down there, or any comments, any things anybody like to share about this work? Has anybody read it? You know, if you read this book, you own this book, hey, give us a shout in the comments. Let us know what you thought. What part of this book inspired you the most, surprised you the most? What did you know? What didn't you know? I'd love to hear all of that, because again, I learned a lot with this book. Like it was a lot of stuff I did not know, and I was already reading some of these books. So to find out more things, you know, that we just are just sitting there for us to know. And our scholars have done this work to be able to compile them in books like Dr. Van Sertima's books. So shout out to all of our scholars who have left us the blueprint of how to have this new history, what they talking about here, this new story. So shout out to all of our scholars.
Yes, shout outs and salutes to them. So we don't have any comments in real time, but hey, if you're watching in the replay, leave those comments, and on the replay, the video. If you have
absolutely,
if you own this book, read this book, or even related books, give us some recommendations. You know, if you read books by the author besides the ones that we presented. Because I believe, so I didn't go into Ilyasah Shabazz's background. I meant to do that to discuss the author. So I'll kind of backtrack, because I didn't mention whether she had any previous books before Betty before X. So just to read her brief bio, Ilyasah Shabazz is the third daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. She's an educator, activist, motivational speaker, and author of multiple award-winning publications, including her latest book, X, a novel, and Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. So there you go. There's some previous works by Ilyasah Shabazz, X, a novel, and also Malcolm Little. So you can look up those as well. She has those two works in addition to this one that I offer today. Also in her bio says she's an active advocacy worker and an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City.
All right.
That's Ilyasah Shabazz, and Renee Watson, the co-writer of this. She's the author of Piecing Me Together in This Side of Home, which was nominated for the Best Fiction for Young Adults list by the American Library Association. She has a picture book, Harlem's Little Black Bird, The Story of Florence Mills, which received an NAACP Image Award nomination in children's literature. And she's the founder of the I2 Arts Collective in Harlem.
Wow, amazing. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So much talent amongst our people. Just, I just, I'm always in awe of all the things and that you just don't know. I
Right.
tell my daughter and I were talking today, and we were talking about how we never bored, and she said that like we
Right.
talked about how when they were being brought up in homeschool, like I never accepted bored as you bored. What? You need something to do. It's like
Right.
pick up a book. That was my
Right.
thing. And now I see that in my grandchildren, even who are avid readers and love to read all kinds of things, and that's why I said I would love to see more of this stuff introduced to the youth, when they're young. I mean,
Yeah.
you see so many times parents who are doing the work, studying, but not sharing it with the children, letting the children wait till they get 16, 17, 25 to pick up some of these things. And it's like, no, this is their history too. So let them know all of their greatness, just not a little bit of it. So I would love to see this. I would love to see people do more in this space. So all my writers and creators out there, get out there and give us some more books, please,
Yeah.
and
Put
thank
them
you.
out there. Yeah. Put
Give
them
us
out
some
there.
more books, please, and thank you. Well, Nick, I mean, if you are done and I'm done,
I'm
we
good.
done, and we done made our offerings for today. Nick is going to make sure to put the information for these two books down beneath in the description, because this
Mhm.
was a surprise me week. So he's going to throw all that information in there. Again, if you have any comments you'd like to share with us, any thoughts about this work, if you read this book, not read this book, is this one you're going to get? You're going to put it on your shelf? Tell us all
Mhm.
about it. And again, like
Right.
Nick said, if you have any suggestions of books that you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know that too. And aspiring authors, if you have a book coming out, hey, let us know. Get in touch with one of us. Nick and I are over on Instagram, and you can always reach us both here on YouTube as well. We both have links in our bios that will take you to different places to be able to get in touch with us and stay in contact with us. Let us know what you have going on. We'll get you on the platform, be able to
Mhm.
talk about these books, your process, and the hopes and aspirations for the offering that you are bringing into the world, you are birthing into the world. So again, for me, it was Black Women in Antiquity, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. And for you, Nick?
Betty Before X by
Yes,
Ilyasah
yes.
Shabazz and Renee Watson.
Yes, yes. So we thank you all for being with us. We'll see you in another 2 weeks. And we got, look, we got something for you. We keep it coming. We try to keep it
Yeah,
exciting for y'all because we keeping it exciting for ourselves.
that's right.
So thank you so much for joining us again on another episode of Unread with Nick and Roo, the book reviews. Again, reach out to us. Let us know what you thought. Comments, we love it. Suggestions, we love it. Criticisms, we love those too. So come
Everything.
on over and let us know what we can do for you. Until next time, this is your sister Rue. We will see you in 2 weeks. Peace.
Peace.